Chemical elements in East Asian languages. The names for chemical elements in East Asian languages, along with those for some chemical compounds, are among the newest words to enter the local vocabularies. Except for those metals well known since antiquity, most elements had their names created after modern chemistry was introduced to East Asia in the 18th and 19th century, with more translations being coined for those elements discovered later. While most East Asian languages use or have used the Chinese script, only the Chinese language uses the characters as the predominant way of naming elements. On the other hand, the Japanese, Koreans, and Vietnamese primarily employ native writing systems for the names of the elements, such as katakana, hangul, and kukeng, respectively. In Chinese, characters for the elements are the last officially created and recognized characters in the Chinese writing system. Unlike characters for unofficial varieties of Chinese or other now-defunct ad hoc characters, the names for the elements are official, consistent, and taught to every Chinese and Taiwanese student who has attended public schools. New names and symbols are decided upon by the China National Committee for Terms in Sciences and Technologies. Some metallic elements were already familiar to the Chinese, as their ores were already excavated and used extensively in China for construction, alchemy, and medicine. These include the long-established group of 5 metals: gold, silver, copper, iron, and tin, as well as lead and mercury. Some non-metals were already named in Chinese as well, because their minerals were in widespread use. For example. However, the Chinese did not know about most of the elements until they were isolated during the Industrial Age. These new elements therefore required new characters, which were invented using the phonosemantic principle. Each character consists of 2 parts, one to signify the meaning and the other to hint at the sound. The water radical is rarely used, since only 2 elements are truly liquid at standard room temperature and pressure. Both of their characters are not based on the European pronunciation of the elements' names. Bromine, the only liquid non-metal at room temperature, is explained in the following section. Mercury, now grouped with the heavy metals, was long classified as a kind of fluid in ancient China. A few characters, though, are not created using the above phonosemantic design, but are semantic, that is, both of its parts indicate meanings. One part refers to the element's usual state, while the other part indicates some additional property or function of the element. In addition, the second part also indicates the pronunciation of the element. Such elements are: in 2015, IUPAC recognized the discovery of 4 new elements. In November 2016, IUPAC published their formal names and symbols: nihonium, muscovium, tennesine, and oganesson. Subsequently, in January 2017, the China National Committee for Terms in Sciences and Technologies published 4 naming characters for these elements. The National Academy for Educational Research under the Ministry of Education of the Republic of China on Taiwan published an identical list in April 2017. For traditional Chinese, nihonium and muscovium were then existing characters, while in simplified Chinese, only muscovium already existed in the Unicode standard. The missing characters were added to Unicode version 11.0 as urgently needed characters in June 2018. The Chinese characters for these symbols are: a minority of the new characters are not completely new inventions, as they coincide with archaic characters, whose original meanings have long been lost to most people. For example, and are obscure characters meaning raw iron, needle, hook, and harrow respectively. The majority of the elements' names are the same in simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese, merely being variants of each other, since most of the names were translated by a single body of standardization before the PR-Xerox split. However, since francium and the transuranium elements were discovered during or after the split, they have different names in Taiwan and in mainland China. In Hong Kong, both Taiwanese and mainland Chinese names are used. The isotopes of hydrogen, protium, deuterium, and tritium are written pi, du, and chun, respectively, in both simplified and traditional writing. Is used in Taiwan for both einsteinium and ionium, a previous name for the isotope thorium-230. Like other words in the language, elements names in Japanese can be native, from China or from Europe. Even though the Japanese language also uses Chinese characters, it primarily employs katakana to transliterate names of the elements from European languages. For example, on the other hand, elements known since antiquity are Chinese loanwords, which are mostly identical to their Chinese counterparts, albeit in the Shinjitai. For example, iron is tetsu and lead is namari. While all elements in Chinese are single character in the official system, some Japanese elements have two characters. Often this parallels colloquial or everyday names for such elements in Chinese, such as / for mercury and / for sulfur. A special case is tin, which is more often written in katakana. Some names were later invented to describe properties or characteristics of the element. They were mostly introduced around the 18th century to Japan, and they sometimes differ drastically from their Chinese counterparts. The following comparison shows that Japanese does not use the radical system for naming elements like Chinese. As the Hanja are now rarely used in Korea, all of the elements are written in Hangul. Since many Korean scientific terms were translated from Japanese sources, the pattern of naming is mostly similar to that of Japanese. Namely, the classical elements are loanwords from China, with new elements from European languages. But recently, some elements' names were changed. For example, pre-modern elements often are the Korean pronunciation of their Japanese equivalents, e.g. some of the metals known since antiquity are loanwords from Chinese, such as copper sans serif. Mw parser output.6 nam.ext font family Han Nam Gothic, Han Nam Ming, Han Nam Min, Babel Stone Han, Sun Exp, Mingliu HKSCS Exp, Ming LTHKSCS Exp, Hanaminb, Han Nam Kai sans serif, tin, mercury, sulfur, oxygen and platinum. Others have native Vietnamese readings, such as ST for iron, BC for silver, Chi for lead, Vang for gold, KN for nickel and KM for zinc. In either case, now they are written in the Vietnamese alphabet. Before the Latin alphabet was introduced, ST was rendered as, BC as, Chi as, Vang as, KN as, and KM as in CH Nam. The majority of elements are shortened and localized pronunciations of the European names. For example, a minority of elements, mostly those not suffixed with -ium, retain their full name, e.g. some elements have multiple names. For instance, potassium is known as potat and kali.